Welcome to Thursday Roundtable. If you're just now piping in, wow, you're an early bird. Early bird gets the worm. We're so glad you're here. If you want to talk about or if you want to hear about how we can create supportive environments to attract and retain health staff, then you're in the right place. And I would imagine some of the concepts we share will help with any industry, but we've got a great panel of healthcare experts that can talk about this. And we've got a little disclaimer. Today is our first day using a disclaimer. So we got that in the post there. Feel free and take a look at that disclaimer. The opinions are of their own and not of their organizations they represent. But I will have each of you introduce yourselves, but I'm going to at least welcome you to the show. And first of all, welcome to the show, Dr. Susan Mazur.
Hi, Rollis, and I'm so happy to be here to meet my other co-conspirators in improving healthcare. I am the president, CEO, and co-founder of the Care Channel, which is a 24-hour relaxation channel now in over 1,100 hospitals nationally. And the focus of our work and of my basic focus of concern is the environment in which we provide care, which becomes a primary caregiver. So it comes all the way back from Nightingale and moves forward. Thank you, Rollis.
Love that. Amazing. Okay, so Dr. Raja Issa, welcome to the show.
Hi, Rollis. Hi, everyone. And thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here today to have a discussion about such an important topic. We have to go and address it and raise the awareness and the discussion about it. Especially, I would say we're still in a pandemic or post a pandemic, hopefully. I'm a nurse by background. I have my doctorate in nursing practice from the University of Michigan. I'm currently practicing as a nurse, as a manager, as a supervisor for multiple unit in a hospital, and at the same time I'm a clinical adjunct faculty in a school of nursing. I'm so excited and looking forward for this amazing discussion.
Me too. I am as well. And then we also have Miss Sara. I want to make sure I get this. Is it Macchiano?
Yeah,
or is it Macchiano? Is it Macchiano or Macchiano?
Macchiano.
I said it right the first time. See, I messed myself up.
You said it right. Yeah, you got
it. Well, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Rollis. It's so nice to be here. It's nice to meet you, Dr. Mazur and Dr. Issa. Like Dr. Issa, I'm a nurse by background and training. I also knew my passion was leadership early on. I got my master's degree right around the same time I was finishing up my first 3 years as a staff nurse, where I worked on a cardiac surgery step-down unit. And then have spent the rest of my career in leadership roles. My first being a nursing director on an inpatient nursing unit at Mass General Hospital. And my most recent role is as the co-founder of Canopy Consultants, which I started with a dear friend and colleague, Stacey Hutton Johnson, to focus on leader development, coaching, and to provide our expertise in consulting to organizations looking to improve work environments through their investment in their leaders. So very excited to be here today and to be talking about this topic.
I am too. And, when it comes to attracting healthy staff, that is my jam. That's what we do as a company. So I'm always loving to hear experts talk about the subject, because that way we can help our clients that much better. So I am the host today, or a moderator, whatever you want to call me, guys. But as you're just now signing in, let us know where you're signing in from, what city, what state, what country. We do have Muhammad Abdullah Shakur. He's already saying hello, everyone. Glad to see you. Glad to see you as well, Muhammad. Thanks for being here. Then we have a few others that are coming in. Let us know if you have questions as we go throughout this discussion. And I want to get us kind of right into this. So when we think about, first of all, when we think about a supportive environment, how would you define a supportive environment? Let's start off with you, Susan. Could you describe for us, how would you describe a supportive environment?
So the term supportive environment comes actually from the theory of supportive design in healthcare. And it comes from the work of Dr. Roger Ulrich, when he looked at what kind of environment would reduce stress, improve productivity, and improve well-being. And although the work has been focused on patients, the reality is that the only difference between a patient and a caregiver is acuity. And so when I look at the environment of care, and I've toured many hundreds of hospitals, when your new potential nurse walks into your hospital, what is the vibe they feel? Can they feel the healing? Can they feel the compassion? Do they experience empathy? Is it in the air? Is it everywhere? And that question, while it may seem ambiguous, is not ambiguous at all to the person who is living it. We all know when we walk into a home, whether it feels homey, whether it feels clutter, whether someone expects us, whether there's a lot of stress, disorganization, whether there's too much organization. But all that also applies to the hospital, because patients and families come in. Within minutes of entering a hospital room, they feel it is home to them. And if they're not comfortable in it, it becomes the rub over the full 24-hour day.
That's a great point. And so, Dr. Issa, from your perspective, how would you describe a supportive environment?
I would look at it from a perspective and I agree definitely with Susan. It's the environment where you want to try to promote healing for our patient and our family, especially in the healthcare industry. We have an ethical duty that we want to address and try to, fulfill our mission and truly be up to the standard and try to be in first of all in compliance with any rules and regulation that exist, that to maintain the safety of the patient, maintain the good quality of care, and these are obligation and expectation nowadays. Correct, with all these reviews that we've been having nationwide. More to that, I would look at all these social, economical factors that of any context that we are living in. In today's, especially now when we face the pandemic, I always look at it from what are the challenges to be able to maintain such an environment. So we define the environment, we define the expectation of our healthcare institution, but how can we maintain and sustain the day-to-day operation, to achieve the goal and the outcome that we want to have. That's how I would look at it from this perspective. It's way more complex. It's one of the biggest complex environment you can work in with too many inputs and outputs. But I guess I think, and I'm very positive with the future, and especially now with this pandemic, there's a lot of lesson to be learned.
And before I move on to Sara, just one thing I thought of when I see that M on your chest there, it reminds me of the Fab Five. When I was growing up, I was a big fan of those guys. It may predate you, but
oh yeah, okay.
That was fun. Chris Webber and Jalen Rose and those guys. Anyway, okay, I don't get off on this tangent there. So Sara Macchiano, what is your perspective when it comes to supportive environments?
Yeah, well, I appreciate both Susan and Raja's perspective on it and totally agree, especially the connection between our patients and our staff are looking for all the same things. They're humans, they're patients one day because of circumstances. But the connection or description I would provide for work environment comes around to what we look at when we think about the magnet model in nursing and what is it that nurses are looking for out of their work environment. Certainly autonomy, growth, professional development opportunities, and support. And so when Susan talked about that supportive design and the theorists that did the research there, that really resonated, because I think those are the three things. And if you look at any article written or coming out, they always talk about three things. And it's, can I do what I'm best at? Am I supported to do it? And do I have an opportunity to move and to grow? And I think that's really no different for what healthcare workers, whether they be nurses, social workers, therapists, what have you, physicians, are looking for in a work environment.
So for a minute, what Ulrich said in his study, which goes back to 1986, is that a supportive environment provides the user control over their space to whatever degree they can have it. It also provides for social support, a way to talk and share and not be isolated. It provides positive distractions. And I say that because the relationship of natural elements to reducing stress for the nurse and the patient and the physician and everyone in the hospital has been shown over and over. And that does not have to be actual nature. It can be mediated nature. Pictures, silk plants, video, just a connection beyond the hospital, beyond the techie stuff that tends to dominate the hospital. Then, of course, what they need is continual reminder that they're not alone doing their job, that they have support and someone has their back.
And maybe even music from a wonderful harpist possibly could help.
Well, the interesting thing about putting music in hospitals is that when we first started, which was about 1989, because we were looking at music as environmental design, the first people who would complain would be the staff. Because for some reason, when they heard music, they'd put on their cocktail hour hat and take off their nursing hat. So really creating an environment that is inclusive and not divisive. We all know generations are split along the musical lines, and we don't want that, and we also don't want to cause emotional distress. So it's a complex problem that we've been dealing with for many years, but I will tell you that the number one complaint, next to how awful the food is at the hospital, is noise. And it's a risk factor.
Interesting. You know what? You bring up a great point, because in the past, I've had music on my show, and it's caused some issues, because I have some people who literally says, Rollis, we love it when you have background music. Can you have more background music? I'll do the background music. Then I have another set of folks says, oh my gosh, the music's too loud. It's too distracting. Can you please turn the music off? So I've actually felt that myself. We may try and do something to support the staff that may not actually be supportive at all. To some, it may be antagonizing. I didn't realize that till you just mentioned that. That was a great point, Susan.
Yeah, it also, I think in our hospitals now with our elderly patients who are hearing impaired, a chaotic auditory environment means that most likely they can't understand or recall anything that is said to them. So how we create an environment where the communication between the nurse and the patient can be very clear, easy to comprehend, easy to recall, is very critical to the long-term success of treatment.
Thank you for that. Christy Mankey, she says, hello from all of us here at Healing Healthcare Systems. Is that someone you guys know? That's
my family.
Awesome. I love it.
Awesome.
Well, glad to have you here with us today, Christy. Thank you for being here. Okay, so Raja, if you don't mind, I'd like to ask you this. I'm getting a lot of feedback from nurses that say that they feel like they're not being supported, because that's why I thought this resonated with me, that they're not feeling supported. They're trying to do their best to do this care, but they don't feel like they're being supported by sometimes management or maybe it's upper leadership or what have you. And again, we know that your opinions are different than, of course, your organization. But just overall thoughts, just what have you observed on ways that organizations, through their leaders, can show that they are being supportive of nurses? What are some things that we can do? And then, of course, Sarah, I'd love to get your extra thoughts on that after Raja.
Such a wonderful question. Thank you, Rollis. I would agree. Suzanne, thank you. I guess Suzanne gave the higher picture of the definition of the environment, correct? What kind of environment we want our healthcare professional to practice, to be able to fulfill their mission. The big thing I would always look at is, in order to achieve this environment and avoid this feeling of being not supported, and avoid turnover, avoid a lot of things and burnout, I think we have to always go back and look at what kind of national policies do we have, correct? What do we have from a policy perspective on nationwide that that exist in place that support our healthcare force. And then the second level, we have to always look at it and say, okay, after the national level, what are we doing for our healthcare sector here in the country? What kind of intervention and study and evidence-based practices we have from a human resources perspective, from nursing leadership perspective, any management that we can adopt and share across, all these big organizations. The third level I would go look at it is on the organizational level. And from organizational level, when we're going to say, in order to achieve an environment, the healing environment, the perfect healing environment, or the near perfection healing environment, what do we have in place? What kind of things are we implementing? For example, as a safe work environment. And when we're talking about a safe work environment for our workforce, are we talking about physical safety? Okay, we had this pandemic. There've been a lot of challenges our nurses they faced during this pandemic. Shortage of PPEs in different cities and in different states. The way we responded to some of the things, these are things we have to look at them and learn from them. This is the safety. And then when we're going to talk about, this is environmental, physical safety, and then psychological safety. What are we doing to protect our workforce from burnout? What are we doing to avoid compassion fatigue? A lot of the people, 99% for people when they go for healthcare, they have this purpose or their mission that the caring mission. They want to go and help patients. They want to go and help their families. And right now, everybody's feeling, that when they are reaching burnout, when we are seeing high turnover rate, when we are seeing high absenteeism, people are leaving their profession, changing of their profession. These are symptoms our workforce are facing it. At the organization level, what are we doing? How can we support them? And this all comes into leadership. I agree definitely with Sarah. Let's go back and think, what did we have historically? The magnet environment was something we learned since the 80s, and it's still evolving over the years. And magnet came into with all these concepts to say these organizations have the characteristic of this organization, they have this high rate of retaining the talent for nurses. Let's try to go back and adopt these practices and reinforce them and enhance them in our day-to-day operation as leader, as manager, from all the level, from the C-suite level down to the middle management level.
Appreciate that. Sarah, what about your thoughts?
Well, I wholeheartedly agree with everything Raja just said, in particular, talking about the role of leadership. So if you have leaders in staff in institutions that are stating they're not feeling supported, I'll talk more specifically about what is the hiring and the frontline manager's responsibility in that situation. And the first thing I would say is they have responsibility there. I think it's very easy to throw your hands up and to say, well, the organization isn't this, or there's a global pandemic going on, or all of the points that Dr. Issa was making there about we don't have the right policies in place. All of those things are true. And if you're in a management position, you need to own some responsibility of what you do control in the work environment. So that would be my first thought, is that managers need to have clarity on what that is. And clarity both in terms of responsibility and also so they avoid their own burnout, what is reasonable and achievable for them in that environment, and just start where you are, because the impact that the leader that the staff interfaces with on a day-to-day basis is much bigger than the impact the CEO or the chief nursing officer is going to be able to have. Their role is critically important, but to the frontline staff nurse, where the support's going to come from is the support they feel from their direct manager. So I would say step into that, own that, and embrace it as a critical component of your role.
Yeah, I'd like to add to that if I could.
Sure.
So it's very interesting. I've done this for so many years. I've heard so many times we're so busy, we are over we're understaffed, overbedded. We don't have enough beds. We don't have enough this and that. But I'm going to suggest to you that if a healing culture is embedded in the organization, it is resilient and it will adapt. And if it has to stretch itself, it will stretch and then return to being a healing organization. So what happens when we're under that kind of stress is that everything kind of goes to hell, right? We're in survival mode. So I'm thinking about politeness, kindness, thank you, please. All those things that allow us to be human to each other, those little courtesies, tend to we can't indulge anymore. We have to just get the job done. But we must, if it's embedded, fully embedded in the culture of the organization, it never is sacrificed under the worst conditions. And as long as I've worked, I've always talked about it, that we want an organization to be chocolate through and through, right? We don't want to have chocolate here and taffy here and coconut here. We want it to be very consistent. And that's what's difficult to achieve, because every single practice, when you look at a nurse and how many different practices there are, an ICU nurse, there's critical care, there's ER, there's telemetry, there's step-down units, there's pre-op, there's surgical. But a nurse is a nurse, and being caring and working in a caring, healing culture, it is fully resilient, and it becomes automatic to support our coworkers when we see them fully stressed. So that's my experience and all the nurses I've worked with. And I work very closely with Dr. Jean Watson and the Caritas model of human caring. And the idea that the first place is that the nurse must take care of self and be self-aware, and that there has to be equanimity between the patient and the nurse, and resilience and authentic concern and caring. That's where that connection is made, and that connection with the patient. Patients become themselves resilient and how they adapt to this chaos. But when it becomes an organizational model that is kind of mechanistic, policy-driven instead of caring-driven, where it has no elasticity in dealing with the crisis, things start breaking.
Yeah, that's that's an excellent point. And there's a question I want to follow up about leaders getting burnout. But I want to come back to that. Before I do that, we're almost at the halfway mark. So we usually would take a little water break here. So you can take a little bit of water if you have some. And we'll just take a little water break. And I'm going to read a comment here. Leah says, so happy to see Dr. Susan Mazur as a guest on the show today. I know, Leah, and you had a discussion earlier. She was so excited about you having not that she isn't excited about Dr. Issa or about Sara, but that's what she commented. Okay. All right. So I do have a question for each of you. And I'll start with you, Raja. Mm-hmm. It says, what would you prepare as your favorite meal if you had friends or family coming over? Imagine you've got some folks coming over this Saturday here. What's your favorite go-to meal that you would want to fix for them?
Oh, definitely. There's a lot of Middle Eastern dishes we can pick up of.
That's right.
I love that food, by the way.
we can start a little bit with some appetizer, the hummus, the fattoush salad, some grape leaves.
I'm so hungry already.
Definitely the shawarma. Let's start. We can talk about the shawarma, chicken shawarma or meat shawarma.
Oh, love it. And one of the things that we first go to a restaurant, if it's a Greek or Middle Eastern, whatever the case restaurant, one of the things we start gauging them by is how good is the hummus and the pita bread with it. We're already gauging it. We're figuring out how good of an experience it's going to be, because we generally have that as an appetizer. And sometimes it gives us a good indication how the meal is going to be. So how about you, Susan? What would you fix for your favorite go-to meal for friends and family or family?
Well, I'm very well known for cooking Indian food.
Ah,
So
I love Indian
I
food.
would make dal and curried spinach, and probably we'd still have hummus, because hummus really touches all these cultures, and really grow from those dishes into rice. And I make rice based on my Iranian friends who've taught me how to make Iranian rice.
Ah,
Perfecto.
okay.
Oh,
So saffron rice. So that's what I'm known for, and that's what people expect from me.
Ah, sounds yummy. So I don't think I've ever had. You said curried what again?
Spinach.
Curried spinach. Okay, so my wife is Jamaican, so I've had my share of curried chicken. I've had curried shrimp. I've had some curried goat. Not especially fond of goat. But I have several different curries, but not curried spinach. Interesting. Okay, how about you, Sarah?
Well, I'm also hungry, and I feel like I need to find out where you both live and come much better than I do. And both of those meals sound like they would take hours to prepare. I typically go to my favorite Pinterest, throw everything in a pan, throw it in the oven, chicken, rice, a little bit of corn, salsa, some beans, taco seasoning, and mix it together, and it's done in an hour. Top it with cheese, and people love it. And it's not nearly as ornate, but
it sounds yummy. And guys, in the comments, let us know what your favorite go-to meal is. Put that in the comments for us. We want to know whether you're watching it live or on the replay. We still want to know, guys. Okay, so Sarah, I'm going to start out with you, but because I've gotten quite a bit of feedback on this. In fact, there was a situation where I know of two nurse leaders. I was just talking to a CNO who knows two nurse leaders, that one of them was a fairly new nurse leader, and they wanted to go back to shift work because they felt like not only did they have to leave, but they still had to do a lot of the same things of the other shift nurses, but they weren't really getting the recognition. There was no breaks. They just kind of had to keep working through all of this and doing extra duties as assigned. So what are your thoughts on this about the nurse leader, or just healthcare leader in general, burnout issue that seems to be getting bigger?
Yeah. Well, I think the statistics, the latest that I've read, are between 35 to 50% of our nursing staff is burnt out. And I don't think the nurse leaders are an exception to that. When we think about nursing leadership traditionally, as people came into the roles, I knew that it was a role I wanted to go into. I got my MBA early on. When you look at other organizations, other nurse leaders, that's not the norm. We continue to follow the old practice of, you're a great nurse, why don't you be the charge nurse or become the nurse director? And it's an old model that is no longer serving us well. Additionally, and to your point that you're talking about, where people then are put in the role, I don't know what type of onboarding they receive, what type of training, what type of mentorship. But when you're put in the role and then you don't have clarity between what your role was and what your role now is, that's going to accelerate burnout and not be an enjoyable job. And I can understand why people might say, I'd rather go back where I can make differentials on the night shift, work 3 shifts in a row, have 4 days off, versus this crazy 24/7 accountability, hard to sleep at night, thinking about what everybody's doing. And the opportunity for us, though, I think, as people that enjoy leadership jobs, that have done it as a career, have had families while we're doing it, is to get the word out there to the next generation that it doesn't have to continue to be that way. I have 3 children. I was able to do that while working as a nurse director because of a supportive environment and amazing boss that made sure I knew where my responsibilities began and end. And my responsibilities in that were making sure I voiced what I needed. So if there was 2 takeaways from that, I would say that there can be a lot of joy in leadership. It's very rewarding, and it does require you to be your own advocate, at least now while we're trying to change some of these longstanding norms.
Yeah, I'm thinking about how Nightingale, she was the one who set up nursing administration saying that nurses couldn't do it all. They need someone to kind of run the house. And that at that time, she wanted her nurses to stay at the hospital 24 hours a day. Mm. They couldn't leave.
Really?
Things were much simpler at that time in so very many ways, but the stresses of nursing have just accumulated. They've just accumulated. So when I even think about the issue of cleanliness in a room, that a nurse comes in to take care of the patient and they look around and it's full of clutter, and the patient then can experience not just clutter but crowdedness, which is totally stress producing. And housekeeping seems to be 1,000 miles away. How do they do that? And that's the kind of support, ongoing support of someone tending to the room, someone tending to the kind of ongoing patient experience, so that when the nurse walks in, there is a status, again, of calmness and recovery as opposed to chaos and panic. So the better the patient and family does, the better the nurse does.
Yes.
Do you think, Sara?
Oh, totally. Yeah, I think the connection between the work environment and the quality of care outcomes is strong. It's been well proven in the literature.
Right.
I completely with you, Susan. Yeah.
So, Raja, I've heard this, that with leadership, it seems like they're not adequately prepared. So what are some areas that you see for improvement, or what areas where you think we're doing well when it comes to preparing leaders? Because to Sara's point, I believe she mentioned, if they're a great nurse, let's go ahead and make her a charge nurse, and then let's go ahead and make her a director, and then eventually even higher than that. So what are some suggestions or perspectives you have on that?
Well, I definitely agree with what Sara said. I mean, the approach, I always look at it with healthcare. There's a lot of, if we wanna try to adopt an organizational model, a lot of our concept and processes are still behind compared to different industry. Okay, one of the example I can share: succession planning. If you go and look at all different industry, there's always this. Any leader that they are near retirement, there's somebody else. We will prepare the other people. We have succession planning in place. We always look at things on the well-being of the leaders, correct? If you are a wonderful nurse, very passionate, you're doing a phenomenal job at the bedside, that doesn't mean if you're going to be in a leadership position, you're going to admire and you're going to like that, correct? And these are the model that we need to start a little bit step back away about it and try to bring. And I always say, bring the evidence to the bedside. A lot of things, we do a lot of research. We fund thousands of research in our country and in our healthcare industry. But the problem, and we publish, and the problem is we don't go and adopt these practices and implement them in our clinical practice. Let's go back, see what are the evidence. How can we grow leaders? How can we prepare leaders to be successful in their jobs? A big thing is, and Sara touched a big point. I lived it through the pandemic. I asked myself, working 50, 60 hours a week, and sometimes 70 hours a week, because when you sign up for a leadership role, you want to try to support your team. You want to try to ensure that other people are able to perform their job successfully, especially if they are at the bedside, they are frontliner. You want to try to ensure everything they need. They have everything they need to perform the job correctly for the patients, and this is not easy. That's like a calling that requires sacrifice, and at the same time, if we do not take care of ourselves as leader and as manager, we're gonna get burned out, and then you're gonna always try to think, okay, what I need to change my career. I want to go back to be the clinician at the bedside. Going back to the concept of environment that we started by identifying it. Well, the environment also has to be supportive for these leaders ensure that we have appropriate resources for them and taking care of them, because in order to continue taking care of other people. So that's a very important thing. A lot of organization, a lot of my colleagues, and nationwide, they didn't get that. Unfortunately, I consider myself fortunate. but this is something that we need to go and speak up about it and try to share this across all the disciplines that we have.
Absolutely. I see that there's also some leaders that are already happy with what you just said. Okay, I have a big question here for you guys, but before I do that, and it's about incentives to bring in nurses. There's a new concept I've been approached with by some nurses, but before I do that, I do want to go through a little question. Who wants to take this question here first? It's a would you rather question. Any volunteers? Susan said no. Come on, it's fine.
We have no reason to trust you, Rollis.
Okay. Okay, let's see here. Would you rather? I'm going to ask. Let's go with. I think Roger seems very adventurous to me. I think he's ready.
Oh, okay.
Okay. All right. So here's your question. Would you rather windsurf on shark-inhabited waters, or hang glide over a forest fire? Impossible choice. Which one would you pick?
Hang glide. Oh God. I will take the forest fire.
Why is that? Why would you take that?
Hey, I mean, I live in Michigan. You know, we don't have sharks. Have beautiful beaches. We don't. No sharks.
Okay, so what about you, Sarah? Which one would you take? Would you rather windsurf on shark-inhabited waters or hang glide over a forest fire? Which one would you take?
Windsurfing.
Why is that?
Well, I feel like I'm not even sure if I know exactly what a windsurfing board looks like, but I feel like I could tuck myself up on it and not fall off. I'm afraid, like, inhaling all of that smoke, I might pass out, let go of the hang glide. It feels very out of my control.
Yeah, got it. Okay, Susan, how about you?
Well, personally, I want to be an administrator and not have to do either one. I want to help people on and, you know, collect the money for them to get on. That's my vote.
That was a great way to evade the question. That was masterfully
That's right.
done.
It was a great way to evade the question.
Masterfully done. Okay, so my big question. I'm gonna let you take this, Raja, first, since you were so bold to take the question. And by the way, I applaud you for that. So here's my question, and I've gotten it from several nurses. Nurses are saying sign-on bonuses and incentives don't work anymore. We rather you just let us know that you're actually supporting us and that you're looking to fix the issues. And we've been tracking sign-on bonuses since March 11th, and we've seen them go up and down. Right now, they're trending up the past couple of months. I think which shows folks are hurting to try and get more nurses in. But are we barking up the wrong tree here? What are your thoughts on sign-on bonuses and incentives versus just fixing the stuff that's broken?
Well, a very important question. Again, we want to go back and see exactly what our workforce needs. Like, I mean, we want to try to be. First of all, we have to ask them. We have to keep them engaged and try to get their feedback. That's the step one. Every single organization, every single environment, they need to embrace this. And it shouldn't be only on a yearly basis. I know that a lot of hospital, a lot of organization, they sent a yearly survey. Hey, give me your feedback. What do you need as a nurse? So to keep up and so we can retain you. The first thing I would always look at it. First factor is leadership, the manager. It's preparing our manager and leaders to be truly leaders, not and be there for their staff. Listen to their staff. We are programmed all the time to, when we listen, to reply. A lot of our workforce, they want to know. They want somebody to be able to have a conversation and express their concern. Be able to listen to them. We need to listen to them. That's number one, and try to adopt this. As a young manager or administrator, I would always say it took me a lot to just develop the skills in my career. Because again, we are engineered in a way. I would get a message. I would, in any conversation, the first thing that comes to my mind, instead of listening, I want to reply to what's going on. The second thing is, it's not only about the money. Exactly. See what do they need? Nowadays the pandemic, grew a lot of things in us, like flexible scheduling. Let's start thinking about that. A lot of people start now valuing. They demand work-life balance. What can we do as an organization to support the schedule for our employee, and in order to maintain this balance? And this is something also that can help them in their well-being and truly avoid early burnout for that. The second thing is professional development. It's not the same as before. It's not like, hey, we're gonna pay a little bit money here so you can go get your certification. We want to try to address the variety that our workforce wants. What are you good at? And try to build more on strength, not weaknesses. You have a strength about, let's say you have a passion toward the music therapy. How can you grow that as a clinician? How can you adopt something like that? I'm looking at Susan as an example, because the wonderful work she's been doing. An additional thing is also try to hold on the good employee. Truly, like a lot of the good employee we're losing a lot of high performer, good employee performer. What can we do for them? We should try to think above and beyond what kind of solutions, intervention we have to have in place to not lose this asset for our organization.
Absolutely.
And the last thing, truly, I want to look at it is speak the language of the new generation. Social media, be able to talk with the new language for the people. Things are changing. A lot of people, they're not. It's different. They're the way they communicate is different. Maybe they like more. They avoid sometimes the face-to-face. They like more texting. They like more to have the Zoom meeting. This is something that's evolving. How can we adopt this in our practice? It's not anymore the old traditional way of communicating with people. I guess this is what I can share from my humble experience as a leader. I'm looking at Sarah and Susan if they want to share also what they have too.
I appreciate that. Before you do that, though, I do have a couple comments I overlooked. Joanne says chicken and pork adobo. That sounds good. I think that's from the Philippines, right, Joanne? Sounds like a great dish. And then Leah says, hello, Dr. Raja Issa. So glad you could join Rollis today. Always so great to hear your insights. Okay, so Sarah, you were brave enough to answer my question second the last time. So give me your thoughts on, do you think sign-on bonuses are still relevant or incentives? Or do you think it's more of trying to communicate that we're fixing these issues that we've had and that sort of thing? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think I'm thinking of it from where I sit in Boston, where I was a nurse director. I can't recall a time in my 10 years in that role where a sign-on bonus was needed to be offered. And I think that's telling. Wow. That we have different markets across the nation. We have different organizations that aren't needing to do that. Was blessed to work at MGH that has an amazing work environment for a lot of reasons, primarily leadership. And when we think about it, I guess the first question I have is why are those incentives and bonuses needing to be offered? Is there a downturn in that particular economy and people are leaving and going someplace else to raise their families where they can afford homes? Or is it a reflection of the work environment in which it's difficult to attract people? And if that's the case, I would agree with what Raja said, which is, no, I think the sign-on bonuses might get them in the door. It's not going to keep them there. And if you're needing to fill that many positions, you're going to spend all your money, and you probably could have spent it elsewhere to fix the reason why they were leaving instead of focusing on the sign-on and the.
I agree with you, Sarah. I just want to add, because what would happen is they would work too much in the beginning, and then after that they would reach out the point of a burnout.
Yeah.
and then they're not going to be able to continue.
Yeah. And just to answer your question, Sarah, because I know you asked the question, why would they need the sign-on bonuses? There are certain areas in the United States where there's a disparity of not enough nurses, and so they're trying to pull them from other parts of the country. That's also part of it. And then some of them are facing just an overall lack of supply on top of retiring nurses or those who are leaving the profession, not necessarily because the hospital wasn't doing well. It just happens, right? And so they're in a situation where they have to compete on a national scale. They can no longer pull from local talent, and so they feel like they have to have these sign-on bonuses. So, but thank you for that. I appreciate it. Did that answer your question, Sarah? I don't know if you...
And it takes us back to Raja's earlier point about succession planning. If we look at the average age of a nurse, this is going to be the story for the next coming years. And to bring it back to leadership, it's particularly going to be the story among nursing leadership. The baby boomer generation has been in these leadership roles. There's been little opportunity for the next generation to step in. So we're going to have not only an experience chasm, but we're going to have a massive vacancy in our leadership roles in the coming years with retirements and planned transitions. So I thought that was an excellent point you had made earlier, Raja, about the lack of succession planning.
I know Susan got
I think there are more reasons for hospitals to have to incentivize people coming. One is the rural communities where they may have a small rural hospital. Those communities don't have the bells and whistles of big metropolitan areas. First, requiring someone to move, someone highly qualified to move into an area that is underserved or economically challenged requires an incentive that either they've got the heart of gold or they need to be bought in. But I even more agree with you that it will not retain them. So when I think of why does a nurse become a nurse, what is their ideal ethos that drives them every day? Is there a conflict between what they know that they must do for every patient and their ability to do it? Do they have enough backup so they can go to the bathroom or take a break? We have some hospitals setting up Zen rooms for their nursing staff to be able to have a few moments of mindfulness to be able to regroup themselves. Do they have support when they lose a patient? Do they have support when they lose a coworker or a physician? I mean, the human part of nursing is, in a way, I'm thinking about physician heal thyself, nurse care for yourself. And we're not that great at it. We're not that great at it at all. So if within this healing culture, there's a great investment of coworkers caring for each other, being very observant if somebody's really having a tough time as to how to support them in the moment, because it has to be in the moment, because that's how hospitals are. Life is lived in the moment. And also consistency, that if someone comes into a hospital and you tell them, our staff, we're fully invested in our staff. We want them to have a life after their shift. We want them to be able to love and be with their families. Mm-hmm. We want you to grow and find your strength and thrive in it.
Absolutely.
And generally that's not said. What's said is you have all the certifications we need you. Can you start on Monday? So what is the organization invested in regarding their staff?
Yeah.
Is it a life? Because they're going to spend more time at the hospital than they are with their own families. So that's really what I see. And I'm a business owner and I hire, and I've watched other people come in, and because we're musicians, we do kind of an off-the-wall work week of 4.5 days. I said, well, you got to have a life, work your ass off when you're here, but go have a life. Because if they don't have a life, why are they working? right?
I definitely agree, Susan. I want to say something. If we want to look at the numbers, how much are we spending money on the turnover and
That's
on
right.
recruiting and hiring new employees, or new physician, new providers, and how much it can cost to implement certain things to enhance the well-being of our workforce.
Right. That's
I'm
right.
100% sure it will save a lot of money.
Absolutely.
Without question. Yeah.
Absolutely. By the way, Joanne corrected me. She says that, yes, there's also an American adobo. Ha ha. So there's apparently an American. Okay. So I have another question, and this is going to be, we're wrapping this up. I can't believe the hour is almost up. Okay. So if I were to grant you an extra hour a day to do whatever you want with that extra hour a day, it won't encroach on anything else, what would you devote that hour to? Who wants to answer that first? And then I'll give us your parting message as well.
Okay, I'll jump in.
Go for it.
Okay, so I'm a harpist, and for 30 years, 35 years, I've been in healthcare, and I continually have to search for the energy to practice, to play music for joy, and it's always healing for me. Before it's healing for anyone else. I'm a jazz harpist, and by the way, my husband is a jazz musician, and
nice.
He suffers if I don't play with him. So that's what I would do with my hour.
So you,
but of course,
you literally make beautiful music together.
We literally make beautiful music together.
I love it.
Yeah.
Okay, so who wants to go next? Oh, wait. Before we go next, your parting message, Susan. Very quickly, give us something.
My parting message is, when you walk into your work environment, take a moment, listen, look around. What do you see? Where is the healing happening? Can you hear it? Can you feel it? Can you breathe it? And if it's not happening, what can you do to be the starting point?
Oh, I like that. That's powerful. Okay, so who wants to go next? Very quickly. We got very little time left.
Right. I would spend more time with family. That evening hour always goes so fast between meal prep and bedtime.
Okay.
So I would that's where I would put my hour. My parting message really pulls along the thread that Susan started there, which as the leader on the unit, you have more influence than you could possibly begin to imagine. And so do you know what your staff would say about your environment? And if you could pick something to start to change it, this is pulling on your words there, Susan, just start. Do it that day.
Do it. Right.
It doesn't take as much as you think to start to shift an environment. It just takes awareness and the willingness to try.
Love that. Very good. Okay, so Raja, take us home. First of all, what would you pick your hour for?
To learn a new language.
Yes.
I believe I believe it's just like this is the key to enter and learn about a new culture and new food and take the skills to the next level. This is something I would love to have. If I have time, I would like to dedicate this time every day. My go away message is part of that. Going through also the language is a big thing I would always see, and we keep talking about it, is diversity in healthcare, and truly try to address a lot of health disparity issue we've been having in our system. Promote diversity as a leaders as much as you can. Truly embrace this in your day-to-day, because this is gonna help you. The outcome of that on healing, the outcome on that of promoting a healthy work environment is phenomenal, and I'm seeing it right now day to day, and truly it can help understanding and help to bridge big gaps we have in our healthcare system and address the issue of disparity.
I love it. And James Vowels says, this has been fantastic. Thank you. So you got great feedback. And we didn't check with anybody in the cheap seat so far, and I wanted to get their reaction, and they are definitely happy as well. So thank you very much, guys. This is a great session today. The three of you were fantastic. Look forward to having you guys back on the show. We can delve some more into some of these subjects. And those who are watching, feel free and tune in next Thursday. We should have another Thursday roundtable. We'll have probably a different host. I'll be on vacation, but we'll have another Thursday roundtable most likely. And those who are recruiters, who are in the recruitment market, if you're a hiring manager, if you're looking to recruit more folks, feel free and join the community. It's a free community that's right below me. There's a little link there, our website address, member.hrmaximizer.com. Cool little videos we put on there. Plus, we have courses and stuff you can take. Anyway, thanks everybody for tuning in. Let's say bye to everyone, and we'll stay on for a second before we cut off. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Okay, before you cut off, let me make sure it's safe. Joanne, you can let me know when it's safe to hit the end stream, please. You guys did fantastic, by the way. Is this your first time doing live? You guys did great.
Well, thank you, Rollis. That was an interesting experience. It's been a great pleasure, truly, to be with